We're back with Dr. Barghouti, the Palestinian parliamentarian. I just want to be precise, Dr. Barghouti. Is Hamas and the Palestinian Authority right now, as far as the ceasefire with Israel is concerned, on the same page? Because last week we were hearing different things from Hamas spokesmen as opposed to Palestinian Authority spokesmen. As far as you know, are they on the same page right now?
Absolutely on the same page, especially after the meeting that took place between President Abbas and Khalid Mash'al, the leader of Hamas. There is an overwhelming agreement among all Palestinians. We need the ceasefire more than anybody else. We need the ceasefire to stop the bloodshed, to stop the killing of our children and women. And the Israeli government says it doesn't want a ceasefire and continues its operation. And as I said, thousands and thousands of people's lives are threatened now. If it reached the point of the Israeli army attacking even the shelters that have the civilians in them, like UNRWA schools, United Nations schools, then we are witnessing a very serious massacre that is taking place. In addition to that, there is a very
Dr.
serious humanitarian crisis.
You've heard the Israeli military statement. Sorry for interrupting. The Israeli military statement is saying they're investigating that incident, that shooting, that shell that killed so many people at that UNRWA school, that UN school. They're suggesting it's possible. They don't know for sure. It's possible that it was a Hamas rocket that was launched from Gaza, supposedly into Israel, but fell short, and there was a Hamas rocket that hit that UNRWA school, that UN school. You've heard that statement from the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces.
You know, Wolf, this is a big fat lie. Now that Palestinians are killed in a shelter, they claim that Palestinians killed Palestinians. Who killed the 781 Palestinians so far in Gaza, including 220 children? Israeli army. Now that they were caught attacking civilians in a shelter where people were forced to stay because they were evacuated from their homes, 300,000 people were pushed out of their homes with gunshots, with bombardment from tanks. And now that the Israeli army attacks a school, they claim that it wasn't them. This is unbelievable. I think why does Israel refuse then to send a UN investigation committee, an independent commission to investigate? Israel refuses that because Israel knows that it is committing a war crime in Gaza, and it insists on continuing this war crime, which is really not only killing people, but creating such a humanitarian crisis where hundreds of thousands of people have no electricity, have no water, have no shelter, have no way of defending themselves. This area is very small. It's only 140 square miles with about 1.8 million people. And now the Israeli army has practically occupied half of that area and pushing people out of their homes and killing them on the way. These are massacres, and they should be stopped. And that's why we want ceasefire immediately. Israel was claiming that Palestinians don't want ceasefire. I'm telling you, all of us want ceasefire, and all of us want all issues to be negotiated, including lifting the siege of Gaza, because this siege is an act of aggression.
All right, Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, thanks very much for joining us with that perspective. Dr. Mustafa Barghouti joining us from Ramallah on the West Bank. Let's get a different perspective now. Joining us is Yair Lapid. He's Israel's finance minister, a member of the security cabinet of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Minister Lapid, thanks very much for joining us.
Good evening.
I want to get your immediate reaction. We heard Dr. Barghouti say the Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, they are on the same page. They want an immediate humanitarian 5-day ceasefire, but Israel refuses to do so. That's their claim. You say?
I say that we have said a yes to a ceasefire a week ago, and they've declined. And then we had 2 humanitarian ceasefires. In both cases, Hamas used the humanitarian ceasefires to shoot at civilians and try to kill Israeli women and children. So before we are talking about ceasefire, we should talk about the fact that how can we stop the Hamas from killing not only our children and not only our people, but also their people, because they are in charge of what is happening right now in Gaza.
So is it true, though, that they're ready to accept 5-day humanitarian ceasefire, but Israel is not?
No, what they're saying is that they didn't say they are accepting it, they just said Israel is not accepting it.
Is Israel accepting it?
Israel is going to talk about it with all proper authorities, with the United Nations, with the UN, but first and foremost, Hamas cannot expect us to stand still while they're shooting at us, while they're trying to take the tunnels, the terror tunnels, underneath houses of civilians, trying to kill and kidnap Israeli citizens. And you know what? There are more than 3,000 rockets that were fired upon Israel in the past 3 weeks. What other country in the world will stand for this? Of course, we cannot say, okay, and whenever they want to plug it in, they want to plug it out on their own timing. Now they want 5 days to rearrange their army to make sure they have ability to fire at us again. Then this is not a humanitarian ceasefire. This is them trying to sabotage the whole process. We said yes to the Egyptian offer a week ago or 10 days ago, and they've declined. So they have to answer the questions.
So this most recent incident today, this UN school, this shelter, are you familiar with it? Because I spoke to Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, the spokesman for the IDF, and he says they're investigating the Israeli military. It's an awful incident, a lot of civilians killed. They were seeking refuge there. He's raising the possibility, the military, the Israeli military, this could have been a Hamas rocket. You're a member of the Inner Security Cabinet. What have you heard about this incident?
Well, you know what? Unlike Mustafa Barghouti, who was interviewed here before me, we don't have the privilege of flying through our teeth and say 2 minutes after an incident that we know everything about it. This is the exact difference between a functional democracy and somebody who's just dealing with propaganda and trying to gain PR points. As far as we know, there's one thing we do know. From this area, they were shooting at Israeli soldiers. And they used schools as they did before to put as a storage for rockets and also as bases to fire at Israeli soldiers. The General Secretary of the UN was the one. He's not an Israeli. He said when Hamas is using schools as a storage for rockets and firing at soldiers from schools, then he's the one to be blamed for all the killings that happens as circumstances of this.
So you're investigating it?
Yes, of course we're investigating as every proper democracy would under the circumstances.
You're the finance minister. I read in one of the Israeli newspapers today that Israel has lost about $200 million over the past few weeks because of lack of tourism, that 36-hour ban on U.S. flights coming in and out of Israel. How much of an economic setback has this been for Israel?
Well, we are a strong economy. We have sustained successes in the past few years. We can stand this, and we can stand even a much longer operation.
You welcome the decision by the U.S. Federal Aviation Administration to reinstate flights to Israel. That was a major setback for Israel.
Yes, it was, and it was wrong.
It was a win for Hamas, right?
Listen, LAX is 10 times more dangerous than the Israeli Ben Gurion airport.
How can you say that?
Because the traffic there is so big comparing to us.
But there are no rockets flying around LAX.
There are no rockets flying around the Ben Gurion airport.
There wasn't one landed
There was one
away.
landed more than a mile away. Listen, the minute we presented the FAA with the details and the facts of the matter, they say, okay, you can go back and flying there. It's totally safe to fly to Israel, and I recommend it, by the way, to everyone who wants to come in.
But you know, the State Department issued a travel advisory saying that all non-essential trips to Israel and the West Bank, for that matter, should be avoided right now.
Well, I understand the American point, but I'm telling you, people feel pretty safe here. We know what we're doing. It's a time of a military operation. Of course, there are hazards, but basically, to fly to it, there's no problem flying into Israel.
And so you're sticking by that statement that LAX is more dangerous than Ben Gurion Airport.
And this after being a few times in LAX, yes. Right. I hope I didn't offend anyone in LA.
I think you offended people at LAX.
Well, I think they know a lot about their own airport.
I fly into LAX all the time, and I feel pretty good. But
you should feel also pretty good when you fly over here.
All right, Minister Lapid, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.